The world as we know it has changed in recent times. Most of us are within our homes waiting to get back to normalcy. And for those of us who love to travel, are eagerly awaiting a time when we can do so. For now, join us on the Globetrotter, where we take you on a journey to some of the most exotic locations in the world, with familiar faces in the entertainment industry and the corporate world. And to host this, I invited a good friend and a well-known figure in the entertainment industry. He has traveled widely to almost every part of the world. Hi, Imran.
Thank you, Zafrana, for having me.
As our first guest, we invited an ideal globetrotter, a personality known to most of us in the corporate world. But some of you may not know that he's an avid traveler. He's a wildlife photographer, a bird watcher, and all of his leisure travel is to travel to exotic parts of the world. Hi, Sarinder. Welcome to the Globetrotter.
Thank you, Zafrana. Nice to be here.
I was going through your Facebook pages and I was also following you when you were up in, I think, the Himalayas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. That was in February. Yeah.
That's right. You were chasing after a snow leopard. It looked very cold out there. So,
oh my God, yes.
I'll hand it over to you to take us through your adventures and why you went looking for this particular leopard. And
I have been fortunate enough to have traveled to many destinations in India, in Nepal, several countries in Africa. I did a fantastic trip to Brazil. So been to a few really, really nice parks around the world, been to some nice locations around the world, seen some beautiful animals, beautiful birds, lots of exotic locations, exotic animals, and rare animals as well. And Imran was mentioning snow leopard. That was something that had been on my bucket list. I have a rather lengthy bucket list of things places I want to see. So I was fortunate enough to go last year to see this rather elusive snow leopard. So it's been like a dream sighting for me. And then again this year. The snow leopard the snow leopard trip especially was a very, very unique trip. It was a very special trip. And the place we go to is a place called Spiti Valley in the north of India. So you have to fly into Delhi, and then you kind of drive from there and you go up into the mountains. It takes about 3 days of driving to get to the destination on some really, really, really shocking roads. You see those Nat Geo movies, Nat Geo clips of the 100 deadliest roads. Yeah, that kind of road. Yeah. So and talking about getting there, this year especially, we had a shocking experience, and we had to drive through Shimla, which is a hill station in India. And when we were leaving Shimla, we got into this really bad snowstorm. It was a very, very bad snowstorm, and the vehicle wasn't quite geared for. Let's just say that the vehicle wasn't geared for that kind of terrain. And we got to a point in the road where you had to realize the road, you've got a mountainside on one side, and on the left side was a sheer drop. It was just like 200 meters down straight into God knows where. And we came around a corner at one point, and the vehicle just started sliding, and it just was an uncontrolled slide. It just slid, and went and got stuck on a little mound about this size of snow right at the edge of the precipice. And there was no way to jump out of the vehicle because the only two doors were either right at the back or right in front, and we were in the middle. So we kind of slid to the edge, stopped there, and there was a bit of screaming that may have happened. I was just absolutely petrified. I didn't open my mouth. I was just like, stay calm, don't move, because I thought, if we moved around, it could push. So we had to crawl out of the back of the vehicle, and oh my God, I can share some photographs of where the vehicle ended up. So travel, to me, is not just about getting to a destination and going to see a snow leopard. It's that entire thing. It's the journey. It's getting there. It's the experiences of crazy airports and transfers and travel. What I was saying, the van journey up chaotic roads and roadside kades where you have food that you would normally never have an experience with. So that entire thing adds so much value to a human being and to a trip, that if we think of travel as destination to destination, you miss out on so much. I have worked with classics for a long time, and my friend who helps me with my travel there, Jit, is always booking all kinds of connections to various places for me. So we get there on day one, and we are warned that, sometimes you have to walk a little bit to go and see the snow leopard. So fine, no problem. Day one goes by, no sounds of. What they do is they send spotters out, and if a spotter sees a snow leopard, then they radio in, and then you've got to walk or drive to the closest point, and then walk to wherever you can photograph these guys. Bear in mind, we are in the Himalayas, we are in the mountains, so road access is extremely limited. And when you say walk, you're either walking straight up or straight down because you're on a mountainside. Very little of this happens on valleys. Second day, we are just about to get into our vehicle to go for just a casual drive. So mentally, we are just going for a casual drive. And suddenly word comes that there's a snow leopard. So my first question was, how far? And the answer came 4 kilometers. Now, 4 kilometers walking on flat ground at sea level, no problem. We walked a few kilometers in our lives. But 4 kilometers at 15,000 feet is a different proposition. We saddle up, get all our camera gear together. Thankfully, there were porters carrying all the camera gear, got kitted out and started walking in almost knee-deep snow. There's a lot of deep snow there. So there were 4 of us, my son, who is much younger, much fitter, obviously, and 2 other friends of mine who are around the same age as I am. Started walking, and we were walking and walking and walking and walking, and I thought I had reached the absolute end of my physical capability. And I asked my porter, I'm like, how far do we have to go? He looks, are we there? Are we there yet? He's like, no. Now there are no
just started.
no, yeah? And then now we've been walking for a good 2 hours, 1.5 hours. And then I'm like, are we halfway? He's like, no. So we continued, and about 2 hours later, we get to this spot, and I see a bunch of photographers up on a mountain. Everybody is kind of getting their gear together. Everybody is kind of staggering to that point because it was tough walking. We get there, and they show us a spot about, I don't know, 600 meters, a mile, about a kilometer away, and a little speck like an amoeba, and there's your snow leopard. And oh man, profanity I didn't even know came out. I didn't know I knew. I was like, you must be. That I walked all this way for that. I mean, we have big camera lenses that we carry. Even with the camera lens on its maximum extension, with extenders, fixed, whatever, the damn thing was like a beetle. It was like, no, not even a beetle, it was like a bug. So it was a complete waste of almost killing myself in the snow to get there. But on that trip, we got extremely lucky. We got extremely lucky because we had a beautiful sighting. I mean, it was like 100 meters out in the open, straight across a valley of a snow leopard at a kill. It had killed an ibex, fresh kill, blood all over the place, blood on the snow leopard, just dream sighting from a photography point of view. Got some fantastic photographs, and I have to admit, as soon as I saw that animal for the first time, I started sobbing and crying. It was so emotional. It was such an emotional moment in my life to see such an elusive animal so close, so out in the open, dream scenario, kill. So travel is a very emotional thing.
From the cold of the Himalayas, you have also been going across the African landscape.
Yes, the first trip I did was to climb Kilimanjaro in 2004. And again, I landed in, I think we flew into Nairobi airport, and I came out and looked, and it was overwhelming because to realize the dream of travel. Kilimanjaro was this, again, something that I had wanted to do all my life. So we drove into Kilimanjaro Airport. Kilimanjaro Airport is tiny. I mean, if you sneeze, you hit one wall of Kilimanjaro Airport because it's tiny. It's like a shoebox. Came out of that and we're driving along, and so I asked the driver, "Are we going to see Kilimanjaro?" He's like, "Kilimanjaro is on your left." And I'm like, "Where?" So I'm looking all over there. I'm like, "Where? I can't see Kilimanjaro." So he's like, "There." And I'm looking now. I'm like, "Where is this Kilimanjaro?" He's like, "No, not there, there." And he points upwards. And you have to realize, put it in the context of, we've all seen Siripada, right? And when you are even in Muskelia or Hatton, Ratnapura, when you see Siripada, it's pretty imposing. You're at about 3,500 feet, and you're looking up at 7,500 feet, and it's imposing. Kilimanjaro, you're at 2,000 feet, and you're looking up at 19,500 feet. It is scary. Right? So the first reaction I had was, "Oh my God, what have I done?" So that was a fantastic experience. Climbing it was magical. Again, ball my eyes out, getting to the top. We had a beautiful sunrise on the first time. I've climbed it twice actually. The first time we went up, beautiful sunrise, fantastic experience. Went with some close friends, got very emotional. Africa is just an unbelievable place. And the thing is, when you say Africa, the first thing that comes to mind is Serengeti or any of those places. And the wildlife density and the wildlife variety in a place like Serengeti is just absolutely amazing. So traveled through the Serengeti, went to places like Gorongoro, Lake Manyara, Terengire, couple of parks there. Subsequently, I had a fabulous trip with some very close friends of ours who live in South Africa to Botswana. Went through about 3 parks in Botswana, and then a beautiful park called Pinde in South Africa, close to Durban. And just the variety, the whole experience. And the thing is, the African wildlife product, the way they have packaged it, the kind of option of lodges that you have to stay in, the vehicles that they use, the knowledge of the guides, park management. There's so much to learn from them in how we can manage our parks as well.
So for someone who is planning to go on a wildlife trip to Africa, there's so many parks there, right? I think more than around 50 parks. Out of the ones that you visited, which one would you recommend for a first-time traveler, like a must visit?
So it'll depend a lot on the individual, right? And the reason I say that is, if somebody has say a very high degree of interest and a high degree of knowledge of African wildlife, and they're going to see something specific, like say they're going specifically to see gorillas, then there are particular parks like in Rwanda or Uganda that you can go to. However, if you are going as a general member of the public who wants to go and enjoy a wildlife experience, I would say Serengeti or Masai Mara are the 2 places to go. Sheer size, sheer diversity, and just beautiful parks. So they are not as specialized as some of your other parks. Like you get parks in Botswana that are specialized in elephants, cheetah, various parks like that you will get. But this has a massive diversity of wildlife. It's a beautiful part of the world. It's so scenic, picturesque. It's probably a good place that you can start with. We had an incredible trip to Brazil. My younger son graduated college a couple of years ago, and my gift to him was a trip to Brazil. So the 2 of us decided we were going to go and see jaguar. The best place by far to see jaguar in the world is the Pantanal. And the Pantanal is this beautiful wetland area in Brazil. You fly into Sao Paulo or Brasilia or any of those places, and then you have to fly into a place called Cuiabá. From Cuiabá, you are picked up by your local travel agent. Again, 2 friends of ours who are incredible. Their knowledge is just incredible. And they came and picked us up, and then you drive about a day and a half into the Pantanal proper, which is on a river, the Cuiabá River. And just like say in Yala or Vilpattu, you get into a jeep and you go out on your park drives. Here, you get into boats and you go along the river, because jaguar are animals that cats that spend a lot of time in the water. They hunt caiman, which are small crocodiles. no alligators. And a lot of the hunting is done on the riverbanks, and they also hunt capybara, which also dwell on the riverbanks. So you do get a lot of them on a lot of sightings of jaguar on the riverbanks. And what my son and I didn't quite bargain for is just how close we got to jaguar. It was very, very close. These guys get in the water sometimes and they start swimming, and the boats are in the water. So you're in a boat that is about 2 feet off the water, seated, feeling very vulnerable. And there's a jaguar swimming 5 feet away from you. Aww. And these are big animals. Yeah. So it was just an incredible experience. Being so close to wildlife, seeing these animals hunt. We were fortunate enough to see a couple of hunts, a couple of successful hunts. And the sheer magnitude of that jungle, that how beautiful, how big, how unspoiled it is just overwhelming. And the thing is, it's not just you go for jaguar, but you see so much more. The bird life is fantastic. You've got macaws. You've got about 2 or 3 different varieties of macaws. You've got all these toucans. You've got so many. The variety there of wildlife is just incredible. Anteaters, tapirs, pangolins, fantastic.
Sorry, excuse my ignorance, but when you say that they're swimming so close to you, don't those jaguars look up at you in your boat, which is, like you say, just about 2 feet above the water, and say breakfast is served or dinner?
Thankfully, it's like when you go to Yala or any of the tiger parks. Tiger parks are even worse, and I'll tell you some stories about those. They don't recognize or identify humans in a can, in a vehicle, as prey. So they don't see them as a threat. That's one. And they also don't see them as prey, because these animals are in the deep jungle that are in national parks. So although there is a little bit of disturbance as a result of boats coming around here and there, there aren't too many instances where the animals feel threatened. So as a result of that, they don't get stressed out by the vehicles being there. These are massive extents of jungle. The first time I saw the fellows like so close, and we had quite a few sightings where they were extremely close. It was a bit nerve-wracking. But the most scary thing to me is being really close to a tiger. Because in India, especially when you're going, sometimes you're in Maruti jeeps. And those jeeps are tiny. And tigers are huge animals. When it comes to cats, these are massive beasts. And we had I had one particular experience that was shocking, but it was lovely to talk about later. We were in a park called Bandhavgarh many years ago. This was a time where people used to go on elephant back to see the tigers. So there was a mother and 2 cubs, and we were following an elephant back. I ended up getting on what they call the sports car, which was a small elephant, which was a tiny elephant. And there was another lady who I had no idea who she was, but she was an American lady, and me with my camera, and we started following. So we were now going behind the tiger and the 2 cubs, and then suddenly they kind of broke into a trot, and all the elephants started running in different directions behind them. And the 2 cubs went up a little hillock on the side. We didn't see that happen. We realized that only after we had got to the side of the hillock, and we were standing looking to see where the elephant was on our little baby elephant, and turned around to see the 2 tigers just above us standing on the hillock. And one by one, they jumped over us. And they went right over, and no chance for photography because it was just like so close, and they just went over us and jumped down and they walked off. But what happened was the lady who was seated next to me went absolutely hysterical. She got absolutely hysterical, so much so that the mahu, and normally these guys are extremely respectful and very, in typical Indian style, they're very respectful and they'll never say anything. Mahu turned out, told her to shut up. She didn't shut up. He gave her one thundering slap. She went quiet. But she just started screaming because it was a bit nerve-wracking.
I'm getting tired just listening to you, sorry.
So for all the wildlife travel spots that you've been to, what's your top 3?
Sheer diversity. India and Africa as 2 continents have to be on the top of my list. So first, I have a huge bias towards tropical wildlife. So I don't see myself traveling a lot towards European countries or anything like that to photograph. I would probably stay in a fair band close to the equator. I love traveling in India. I absolutely love traveling. The chaos, the diversity, the variety, the sounds, the smells, the disorganization, the beauty. It's just such a cocktail of incredible bombardment on the senses. So India is definitely up there. Africa is the other place. Africa is the other place when I go to, I just feel so much at home. It's just fantastic. So those 2 continents would be, and India as a country would be the top 2.
When all of this is over, is there any, because you said you have a long bucket list, so is there any place that you're waiting to travel just when the borders open?
Yeah, so this year I had 2 big trips planned that got postponed. I don't want to say cancelled. I was going to Bhutan. My girlfriend and I were going to Bhutan. We were going to spend 10 days there, and that got cancelled from the 10th to the 20th of April. So that trip has now been postponed to a time where we can travel. And I'm really looking forward to that because Bhutan has been a place that I've always wanted to go to. And the other place is we were going back to Brazil. And that was going to be in June. We were going to spend 2.5 weeks in Brazil. And my entire family was going. It's my older son's 30th birthday, so that was celebration of his 30th birthday. And we were going to, so that trip has got postponed now to 2021. Hopefully we'll be able to travel there.
That's a lovely way to end the conversation, I think. Right, Sarinder. Yes, Imran.
Thank you, Imran.
It's lovely chatting to you. I'll see you in Colombo.
My pleasure. We'll see you in Colombo soon. Stay safe.
And catch up there.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sarinder, for being with us today. It was absolute pleasure to have you and talk about all this wildlife with you. Thank you.
My pleasure, Zafrana. Thank you.
Thanks. See you.
Bye.